good afternoon to you and welcome into Florida Live. Here is a live look at the Kia Center in downtown Orlando on this Thursday afternoon. And we appreciate you joining us here live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are in Studio A here at Fox 35 this afternoon as we deal with some construction in our streaming studio. So we appreciate you joining us this afternoon. I want to let you know what we have coming up for you over this next hour. We're going to hear from the state CFO Blazin Golia speaking in Jacksonville, kicking off another audit there, one of several going on right now across this state. What would a new census mean for Florida? President Trump today on Truth Social saying he is calling on the Department of Commerce to conduct a new census immediately and not to count illegal immigrants here in the United States. So what would that mean? Is it legal? Is it possible? We'll talk about that with a history professor coming up in just a little bit. We're also expecting a news conference in about 15 minutes from the state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties, expected to talk about some new policies, some new procedures as well to combat what she calls the politicization of administrative and criminal investigations. Easy for me to say, but we will certainly see what Monique Worrell has to say about that coming up at around 2:15. So we will bring that to you and a whole lot more in this next hour. We do want to begin this afternoon, though, with our Tampa connection. And for that, we go to Fox 13 digital content producer Nancy Gay. And Nancy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Garrett. Thanks for having me today. Today we're going to start in Manatee County, where deputies are searching for a missing woman and her 2-year-old daughter. They do believe that 2-year-old girl is in danger. Now, this all started on Tuesday when deputies say Courtney Stanley was involved in a theft investigation at a Bradenton Walmart. Deputies say Stanley got into her car and sped away from the store with her child unrestrained in that vehicle. They said she also knocked a deputy to the ground as she was getting away. We do not have much information about that deputy, whether or not he or she was injured, and if so, what type of injuries they may have sustained. But because Stanley bolted, she was not able to be arrested. Now, anybody with any information on the whereabouts of Stanley or her daughter, they are being asked to call the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Garrett?
Yeah, certainly a scary situation there by the sounds of it. And like you said, not a whole lot of details at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been given the pictures of Courtney Stanley as well as her 2-year-old daughter. Again, deputies do believe that that 2-year-old little girl is in danger because of the way her mother sped away from that Walmart. She did place that little girl in the car unrestrained. So deputies are searching for both of them, but they are concerned for the welfare of that little girl.
All right, Nancy, our second story today, and that's an unusual arrest in Sarasota County.
Yes, that's right. In Sarasota County, law enforcement officers tell us that a bad baby is now behind bars. Now, this isn't having to do with a child or an infant who may have been bad. Instead, this Operation Bad Baby deals with a man whose nickname is Baby, and he is accused of doing some bad things. Now, Baby's real name is Jaziel Izagari Rodriguez, and police say they found illegal guns in his house, and they say he was also dealing drugs along with his wife. On Monday, Northport Police, along with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office SWAT team and the ATF, went to his home with a search warrant, and they dubbed this Operation Bad Baby. Neighbors said that they heard a loud bang as law enforcement officers forced their way inside that Northport home, and once inside, those law enforcement officers said they found individually packaged cocaine, MDMA, or ecstasy tablets, packaged and stored for distribution. They said they also found over 65 grams of mushrooms, anabolic steroids, as well as they found those anabolic steroids in vials that are consistent with illicit sale. They also found Xanax and marijuana that were also packaged for suspected distribution. Now, at first, police say that the couple denied having any type of involvement in dealing drugs, but they said that the pair eventually admitted to helping package and sell drugs. Now, Izagari Rodriguez's wife wife confirmed his involvement in drug distribution, and police said that she also told them that most of the guns they found in that house belonged to him. He told law enforcement officers that occasionally he distributed drugs to his friends and said he recently returned from Miami with 375 grams of cocaine, claiming that it was for personal use. He said he never sold the drugs, but he did share the cocaine with his friends. Now, neighbors told us they were shocked, and they said that this couple seemed pretty normal. Now, Gary Rodriguez, whose nickname is Baby, is a convicted felon with past charges of robbery, grand theft, and sale of cocaine within 1,000 feet of a school. He has also been placed on a detainer as ICE looks into his status here. They're not sure if he is here legally, so that is why that detainer was placed on him. And the Northport police say that this investigation is far from over, Garrett.
Bad baby indeed, and plenty of reason to cry at this point, I would say.
Yeah, he definitely has. There's plenty of reasons for him to cry, and that is definitely a bad baby, but they caught him and he has been arrested. So that bad baby is now in a big boy timeout.
No doubt about that. Story number 3, Nancy, and learning more about a tragic crash in Florida that killed a 16-year-old.
Yeah, this is a very sad story. Just a few days before the start of a new school year, we've learned that a Citrus County high school student was killed in a crash on I-75 on Monday. Now, troopers say that a 17-year-old was driving a Dodge Charger, and that 17-year-old was speeding on I-75 in Sumter County and then veered off the highway, struck a tree, and caused that car to catch fire. FHP told us after the crash, that 17-year-old driver got out of the car and removed the vehicle's license plate and ran. Troopers later found him hiding in a chicken coop. Now, all 4 passengers in the car, they ranged in age from 13 to 17 years old. They all were taken to the hospital, and that 16-year-old from Inverness did die. Now, FHP said that, again, that 17-year-old driver who ran from the scene was caught hiding in that chicken coop, and he faces charges from vehicular homicide to leaving the scene of a crash involving death. Now, Citrus County High School posted a statement on its social media yesterday. It read, "The Citrus High School family is devastated by the recent crash that involved several of our students and resulted in the loss of one of our own. We know this tragedy has left many of our students, families, and staff hurting, and we are grieving alongside of them. We ask our community to keep everyone impacted in your thoughts and prayers as we work together to support our hurricanes through this difficult time. Counseling and support services are available on campus for any student or staff who needs them." Now, Garrett, school does start in Citrus County on Monday.
Certainly a tough start to the year for many of those students there. In story number 4 here, Nancy, hearing from Brooke Hogan about why she didn't attend her father's funeral.
Yes, that's right. On Tuesday, friends and family of the iconic wrestler gave their final goodbyes during a private ceremony in Clearwater, but Brooke Hogan was notably absent, and she took to Instagram to explain why. Now, Brooke said in part that her father hated the morbidity of funerals and he didn't want one. She went on to say that she is grateful for all the celebrations and events that were organized to honor her father, but she chose to honor him the best and most genuine way she knew how, and in a way that made her feel the closest to him, and that was going to the beach with her children. She said the only thing missing about the beach day was her father, and she ended her post by writing, "Rest in heaven, Daddy." Now, as we know, Hogan rose to fame in the 1980s with Hulkamania, but he was also a celebrity outside of the wrestling world, appearing in numerous movies and television shows, including his own reality show about his life on VH1 called Hogan Knows Best. He won at least 6 WWE champions and was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005 and then again in 2020. He did pass away last month from a heart attack in Clearwater at the age of 71. Garrett?
All right, Nancy, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon for our Tampa Connection.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back with much more after this, so keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube. And as we go to break, here is a live look at downtown Orlando on this afternoon. to Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. Here's a live look of downtown Orlando and Lake Eola. You see some clouds there. We've heard some rain showers and have had some rain here in Seminole County north of Orlando. Tracking the chance for some showers and storms more this afternoon in other places as well. Welcome back in. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are getting closer to 2:15. That's when we expect to hear in the next few minutes from the state attorney Monique Worrell, who's the state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties, talking about some new efforts to combat the politicization of investigations. See, I'm already getting better at saying that word. Meanwhile, while we're waiting on that news conference to start, do want to give you an update from St. Pete, where the St. Petersburg City Council earlier today approved nearly $16 million for the next step of repairs for Tropicana Field. We were talking about more than $1 million for the turf and playing surface there, and more than $14 million for repairs to other parts of the facility. Some infrastructure things, some electrical things, some mechanical items as well. And that's about a $4 to $5 million increase in the original price of those repairs. And all of this obviously comes with the pretext of questions over the future of the Rays in St. Pete because of discussions with the current owner and looking to sell the team to a new owner who, according to multiple reports, is more interested in that team playing in Tampa rather than in St. Pete. I want to play for you some interesting parts of the discussion this morning from St. Pete City Council ahead of a vote that ended up approving these new repairs. Go ahead and listen in.
So contextually right now, we're still above 59 million. So we're still within what we projected.
I appreciate that, Burgess.
Thank you.
And then very quickly and lastly, you mentioned damage assessment. So granted, we are not at peak hurricane season yet, and there is not a roof over Tropicana Field yet. I'm guessing there will still possibly be water inundation. So where do we stand on the mold inspection?
So
that's one of the things we've been keeping an eye on. We've had a consultant who has come out periodically. They actually just completed some additional inspections. So as those test results come in, we take action. Right now, we haven't found anything significant of concern, but we're managing that issue as well.
I appreciate it, and thank you, Chair. Thank you all.
Vice Chair Hanowitz.
Thank you. Jackie, I just want to go over some of the requirements of the use agreement that we are right now under contract with. Just to clarify, who are we in contract with right now under the use agreement? It's the Tampa Bay Rays, the current ownership, right?
Yes, current ownership.
Okay. And what is our responsibility in regards to the stadium? Is to fix the stadium.
So
Right.
it's suitable for playing home games.
Okay. And what are their obligations to us under the agreement? They're supposed to stay there, right?
Correct.
Through when?
Right now, if everything stayed on schedule through the 2028 season.
Okay. Have they released us from the requirements of this use agreement?
No.
Okay. Are the negotiations between the current Rays ownership and a potential buyer change any of the obligations under this agreement?
Not as it's currently written, not unless there was an amendment to the agreement, which would have to be approved by City Council.
Okay, and I just want to make it clear, because there are a lot of people out there that are confused about what the Rays' future may be. The Rays, the current ownership, what's happening right now is between the Rays and the city, and that's the agreement. It has nothing to do with what if they may sell the team, who they may sell the team, because at the end of the day, it's the current ownership that makes the decisions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Not anyone else. Okay. And, you know, it's frustrating because this is an agreement that was entered when? Back in 1998? 95? Can't even keep track of all the agreements at this point, but 1995, right? Okay, so we are operating under the 1995 agreement. It has nothing to do with any of the agreements that recently were terminated. We're back to the use agreement, and that use agreement required us to fix the trop. And once we fix this trop, they have to stay there through the end of the season of 2028 based on the current schedule as it stands.
Correct.
Okay, and if they sell the team, right, that agreement still stands.
Correct.
Okay, under the new ownership. They have to abide by those terms.
Right. Any new owner would have to assume the obligations in the current use agreement as they currently exist.
Okay. And the Rays have indicated to us, first, they want the stadium fixed, right?
I would defer to administration on that one.
They're on board with this, right?
Yes.
They're step by step going through this process with us, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Floyd.
Thank you. Just figured I'd, excuse me, take a second to just, again, reiterate my position on this. I know my colleagues disagreed with me at the beginning of this. I felt we could have pushed a little bit further when we first put the roof on, but we voted to put the roof on. And despite being in opposition then, I see no path out of where we are right now. We are, I think there's a saying like my foot's tied to the pedal or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but I see no legal opportunity at this point. I did, and I know people disagreed with me, and that's why I was the only person to vote against us going down this process, but I don't see it now. And so I've been impressed by the speed and the efficiency with which the administration's gotten this project done. I'll reiterate again, I look forward to that in all of our projects going forward from now on. So
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, but you've shown a real skill here. And I'm not happy, but I'm going to support us continuing down the path that we decided as a city, despite my opposition, because that's the only thing that I believe is feasible right now. And also, I don't think that anything has happened that, was unexpected at all. Like, when we had the first vote on the roof, it was well known that projects are brought to us and they have costs associated with them, and those costs can change. And this, in comparison to many projects that we've done, the cost has changed very minusculely. I understand that people are interested in this, and it's a very high-profile job, but I think if you compare it to recent capital programs, the one that always gets compared to me is a library. This has been done in a very professional and expedient way. Not happy about it, but going to continue to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move approval of items F4 and F5.
Second.
Okay, just quickly, I'm going to follow up Vice Chair Hanowitz. I probably won't do it as eloquently. Have we released the Rays from their obligation to play through 2028?
No.
If they moved under that obligation, if they decide to just pick up and move, what's the remedy at that point?
A variety. First and foremost would be we would seek injunctive relief to compel them to honor the contract as it's.
And I'm assuming as a part of that injunctive relief, if they didn't follow the injunctive relief to fulfill their obligation, we would then go after anything we've spent for them to play in this stadium.
I wouldn't foreclose that possibility, but what the agreement provides for is they do not have an option.
Okay. Thank you. And then thank you, Jackie. And then I want to make one thing really crystal clear, and I know it's kind of been talked about, but again, I just want to double click on it and make sure this is not the Rays order and we deliver. This is a collaborative effort that we then verify to make sure what we're doing is for Major League Baseball playable games at Tropicana Field. This isn't like they come up to the McDonald's counter and they get to order off the menu of everything they want done.
That's very much the case, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I had. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Seeing as no other council members wishing to speak, clerk, could you please open the machine for voting? Council members, please enter your votes. Seeing as all present council members have voted, clerk, please tally and announce the vote.
Mr. Chair, the motion to approve agenda items F4 and F5 passes 7-1 with council members Driscoll, Fix-Sanders, Floyd, Gabbard, Gertis, Hanowitz, and Harding voting yes, and council member Gibbons voting no.
You heard Corey Givens voting no there. He spoke earlier expressing some of his concerns about this and going forward with these repairs, paying the additional money for them. If the Rays are only just going to leave in just a few years at the end of 2028 when their current agreement is up at the Trop, they are hoping to get these repairs beginning next week. The hope is that they will be complete in time for opening day of 2026. We know the Tampa Bay Rays this year playing at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. Still waiting on the start of that news conference in Orlando from the state attorney. We will bring that to you when we begin. In fact, there's a live look inside the state attorney's office waiting for that to begin. So we are monitoring that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on Fox Local and on YouTube. And as we go to break, here's a live look at Daytona Beach on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. And there's a live look at the Kia Center. You can also see Inter & Co Stadium and Camping World Stadium in the background as well on this Thursday afternoon. Traffic moving pretty well through there, through downtown Orlando on I-4 right now. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us. We are still waiting for the start of that Monique Worrell news conference coming up any minute now in Orlando, where the state attorney is expected to talk about some new policies and new procedures, specifically to combat the politicization. I don't know why that is so hard to say. I'm going to have to come up with a different word to say next time instead, of administrative and criminal investigations. So we are waiting for that any minute now. Meanwhile, we heard earlier from the Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ngolia, who has been traveling the state, launching these Doge audits of local governments. We've seen him in Bradenton, in Gainesville, here in Orange County. We've also seen him in Broward County, seeing more of these audits, looking at local government spending and trying to rein that in. In fact, Ngolia was in Jacksonville earlier today as they get ready to audit the city there. And here is some of what the CFO had to say to reporters as that audit gets underway there.
We are going to continue to investigate this, and this is a warning to any local government that tries to hide the spending, try to get scrub the information from government servers, that we will subpoena you, and we will make sure that we get the information. In addition, if we have enough information, we are going to send in the digital forensics team from FDLE and find out who is scrubbing the information. and then we may refer that over for criminal investigation. So this is serious. When we say that we want to make sure that we're rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse, that is for the benefit of the taxpayer. We will not tolerate any covering up of any information in order to fulfill our mission. So as far as our efforts here in the city of Jacksonville and across the state of Florida, property taxes are a very, very big issue. We have seen an explosion in property values and corresponding property taxes, the same way we saw in the mid-2000s, where local government budgets post-COVID have increased anywhere between 60 to 120%. Now, if you start with a baseline of pre-COVID and you start indexing of what their budget should be around and add population and inflation growth, it is nowhere near almost double from what we are seeing. So our teams are on site today. We're looking for some of the things that they should not be spending on, things that if taxpayers knew that they were being charged for in property tax relief, they would probably not agree with it. So the governor and I have been pushing very hard, as others in the legislature, for property tax relief. The governor and I would love to see us getting rid of property taxes for homesteaded properties. But what we are going to see is a reflexive impulse to attack on the from local government to say that they can't cut for a myriad of different reasons. They're going to come out with a parade of horribles and saying that we can't cut property taxes, we can't cut spending because of this reason or that reason. And a lot of times they're going to bring up, public safety, right? And that is just absolutely a scare tactic, because the first role of government is to make sure that we protect its citizens. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we are funding fire and police. If local governments went to zero-based budgeting, the very first things that they should be funding are fire and police, and then start adding on necessary services over that. But what they view as necessary service may not necessarily mean the taxpayers agree with that necessary service. So we are looking forward to shining a light on excessive local government spending, things that directly affect the taxpayer. Home affordability in general is a big issue here in the state of Florida. I will not allow the state of Florida to turn into New York on my watch. With that, any questions, more than happy to take them.
Was there any resolution to the hiccup that we saw the other day with the technology use agreement? I talked to the mayor's office this morning. They said there's no formal resolution, but they've given the team all the files they've requested.
Yeah, that's just proof that they didn't need it in the first place. Look, Florida law is very specific. There are no conditions on us coming in and auditing them and reviewing them and their books for waste, fraud, and abuse. So when they come out and they ask us to sign agreements, or some counties have asked us to sign non-disclosure agreements, this is all public record. This should all be very easily attainable, and we will not stand for anyone putting bureaucratic red tape in front of us for us to do our job, which is to root out waste, fraud, and abuse so we can bring property taxes down in the state of Florida.
That's one heck of an allegation you made. Local governments scrubbing information, public records, deleting keywords, and cover up. What governments are we talking about?
Not at liberty to say right now, but we are investigating that. We have heard from multiple sources that this is happening. We are going to investigate. So my words right here today were sort of like, local governments do not do this, okay? We may investigate it, and we may show that maybe there's some explanation, right? I don't know if it's a good explanation, but that is part of our fact-finding process. We have heard allegations of this from numerous sources, enough where it concerns us in the CFO's office and the DOJ team for us to investigate it.
What kind of sources are you talking about?
People who work inside local governments. And I will tell you that a lot of, I will say this blanketly, there are a lot of, if you ever wonder how we find out to go and what to target, is because there are people inside local governments, people that are government adjacent, are telling us, hey, you should look at X, Y, and Z because A, B, and C is happening. That's how we hone in on that stuff. Any questions?
Any of those governments here in Northeast Florida?
We will, depending on what we find, we will let everyone know.
Is Jacksonville one of them?
we will let people know once we find the information.
CFO, one of the biggest spending items that the city's undertaken lately has been the stadium deal. Is that something that's subject to review under this DOGE effort?
Look, I think a lot of it is subject to review. Some of it is going to be subjective, and then some of it is going to be objective. So we have to separate subjective from objective and make those decisions. We are going to let people know. So if people already know about the spending, the subsidies, I mean, that is something that's already been in news. I'm sure you guys have reported, so the taxpayer is already privy to that. Where we're looking for is things that maybe the taxpayers are not privy to.
You all were in Pinellas County a few days ago. Pinellas County commissioners responded saying that your numbers were off by some $80 million. Is that correct? And if so, what kind of confidence do you have in your agency? What do you tell people in Jacksonville, or is Pinellas County commissioners, are they informed?
So the DOGE team housed out of the EOGs of the governor's office are the ones that are crunching some of those numbers. All I can tell you is that for my whole career, trying to hold local governments accounting in terms of spending, they've been saying that our numbers have been wrong for years, and we've been proven to be right and accurate mostly. But even if we're off by a couple $1 million, the fact still remains that their budgets have exploded. So, and that's what they should be worried about, not making sure that our information is 100% correct. If it's a 99.9% correct, it's still correct in my eyes.
Should we still call it DOGE, or is it FAFO?
Well, look, I mean, the FAFO has been coined by me to as sort of the unofficial name for DOGE, and it's the fiscal, I'm sorry, Florida Agency for Fiscal Oversight. Obviously, there's another connotation.
What is that?
I'm not going to say it on camera, but I think everyone knows. Fool around and find out. Fool around and find out. If you're going to...
That is the Florida CFO, Blaise Ngolea, with strong words of warning to local governments as we see more of those DOGE audits continue, saying fool around and find out, what he has kind of called the unofficial name of these DOGE audit teams that are going in and looking at spending, also warning these local governments not to scrub records. He said they've had some sources telling them that may be happening in some places. He declined today to say where. We are going to take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we will be right back. And before we go to break, give you a live look from our Launch Credit Union camera in Titusville, looking toward the Kennedy Space Center. Keep it right here. We'll be right back with more. blue water and blue skies above Port Canaveral on this Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and we are live on Fox Local and on YouTube. And we are still standing by for the start of that news conference in Orlando, where the state attorney expected to talk about some new policies and procedures in her office. That was supposed to start about 20 minutes ago, so clearly running behind. We do still hope that happens in the next little bit, and we will bring it to you when it does begin. There's a live look inside the state attorney's office this afternoon, where we are waiting to hear from Monique Worrell here any minute now. This afternoon, we did just get word from the state Speaker of the House, Daniel Perez, who says he is forming a select committee on congressional redistricting. Obviously, this all comes amid a lot of news when it comes to redistricting across the country, talks of reapportionment. Today, the president called for a new census here in the mid-decade, in between, it's normally done every 10 years. It was last done in 2020. The next one would be scheduled for 2030. The president today calling for a new census to be done immediately. And he says this one he wants not to include illegal immigrants. So earlier today, I spoke with Dr. John Satcher, who is a presidential historian and a history professor at UCF. And we talked about whether that's legal, whether that's possible, and what it would mean for Florida. Here's what he said. Dr. Satcher, it wasn't that long ago that you and I talked about redistricting and reapportionment and kind of this conversation going on, not just in Florida, but across the country. And so I'm curious to get your kind of take on this latest development this morning with the president now saying he's ordering the Department of Commerce to conduct a new census immediately.
Yeah, I think there are sort of two ways to look at this. One is clearly everyone's looking to the 2026 congressional elections. In the mid-year congressional elections, historically, presidents lose seats. The Republican Party has a very narrow majority right now, and so if it loses seats, it'll probably lose control of the House of Representatives. And so that's what you're seeing in places such as Texas right now, where they're trying to redistrict. We just had a discussion with the Supreme Court in Florida redistricting previously. So part of this is just practical politics. The second part involves a sort of a philosophical view of the Constitution and who should count as a U.S. citizen. And as you pointed out, back in 2019, Trump wanted to change the census already back then to really say we're going to count U.S. citizens. We're not going to count everyone. Now, there are some constitutional objections and constitutional problems with Trump's plan, but that's pretty much the plan he announced this morning. There's also problems with logistical problems with trying to do this in 2025.
You mentioned the initial steps by the Trump administration in 2020 trying to exclude undocumented immigrants. In that case, it was challenged in court. It was kind of put on hold, but then that case ended up being dismissed because of the results coming in the Biden administration, and so it kind of became moot. And so we don't really know what the final say might have been when it came to that court challenge. But what does the Constitution say about a census? Because my understanding was it kind of gives that power to Congress, not the president.
Yeah, I think, well, the Constitution directs that we're going to have a census every 10 years. Now, there are provisions. There's been a law passed that allows for a a census every 5 years, although that law specifically says that mid-year, the mid-decennial census cannot be used for apportionment. The Constitution also says directly that the census is supposed to count and use for apportionment all persons. All persons would include children, would include immigrants, would include people who don't have the right to vote for whatever reasons. And that's been the basis of our representation since the 1790s. So when all of a sudden we're going to try to change this is fundamentally a challenge to the way the U.S. Constitution has adopted the census from the beginning.
So you would expect further legal challenges then if this were to move forward?
Yes, as you pointed out, when Trump tried to do this previously, essentially got thrown out on a technicality. It became not an issue anymore. Now, no one's saying that the 2020 census was perfect. Remember, this is a census that was done under the pandemic. It was, of course, done under the Trump administration, although the final numbers did not come out until the Biden administration in 2021. So no one is saying that there can't be improvements on the census. But the census also involves long-term planning. It involves almost a decade's worth of planning. So we're really in the midst of planning starting for the 2030 census. The census is also required to start by April 1st of the particular year. So if we were to do a census in 2025, it should have started 3 months ago. And really trying to logistically put together a census in 2025 that is going to call for reapportionment and then allow legislators to create districts and to run campaigns by 2026 is an incredibly tight timeline, a timeline I don't think that can be reached.
Has something like this ever been done before?
Not like this. I think what you're seeing, what more typically is what you're seeing sort of in Florida and in Texas, places where you have redistricting going on, and even that is not necessarily typical. You generally redistrict after the census, then redistrict again in 10 years. But where we have Texas right now, where the Republicans are trying to find 5 extra seats for Trump, and the Democrats from the state legislature fled the state in order to prevent this being done, that's exceptional, but at least that's more typical than what we're talking about doing right now. It is just simply not done. And to me, it's interesting. If we discount, if we only count citizens, only count legal residents of the United States, it's possible we don't know where this is going to end up. It's possible Florida could lose seats. Clearly, we have a lot of undocumented immigrants in Florida, and if Florida loses seats, maybe that would hurt the Republican Party. I think this is something that not only has not been done, since it's not been done, it's hard to figure out exactly what the impact of this would be on the electoral process.
I was going to ask what the impact might be on Florida and what it would mean for us here, but it sounds like we don't necessarily know.
Well, I don't think we know. I think we can make a guess. People think that if you count only citizens, you're going to lose numbers in urban areas, and you're going to lose numbers in places where you have a lot of undocumented immigrants. So interesting to me is that Florida and Texas and California show up a lot. Well, obviously, California is something that Trump would be happy to have lose seats, but Florida and Texas, the Republican Party clearly does not want to lose congressional seats in those 2 states. So yeah, I think it's hard to predict, again, because we've never.
Well, that was our interview with Dr. John Satcher. If you'd like to see the rest of that, you can watch it on Fox Local. Here's State Attorney Monique Worrell coming to the podium now to speak about some efforts to combat the politicization of investigations. Let's listen in live from Orlando.
An audit is underway, and we look forward to sharing those findings with the public soon. Another issue, though, that we've uncovered and will be discussing today is the politicization of criminal investigations under the prior administration. No prosecutor's office in this country should be used as a political weapon. It's time to bring clarity, transparency, and lawful resolution to a process that was broken under the appointed administration. I want to give you a little background. As some of you have already reported, there has been a baseless and defamatory lawsuit filed yesterday accusing my prior administration of destroying public records. The lawsuit falsely states that records were destroyed at my direction. First, let me be very clear. There was no such direction that was ever given from me to anyone on my team during my time in office. This lawsuit arises from a sham and politically and also selfishly motivated investigation in which those actively engaged in the investigation have repeatedly shown themselves to be just plain bitter and disgruntled about this community's decision to re-elect me as their state attorney. The politicization of our office's investigations that this whole ordeal has exposed. This is the real issue. And it's bigger than any petty sham grievances that they may have. So I am, in fact, taking action. First, in the coming days, my office will be filing a petition for declaratory judgment seeking intervention from the court regarding public disclosure obligations related to this case. This motion was necessary in order to establish what, if any, records are suitable for release without violating the law surrounding grand jury proceedings. The courts are needed to provide the independence and transparency that is necessary to properly resolve this matter that exists because of a broken, politicized process under the previous administration. Second, I am developing a policy that will ensure that this office adopts best practices for conducting administrative and criminal investigations, ensuring that they are kept separate and independent, as is done in other governmental agencies. Such practices were unfortunately not followed under the appointed administration, resulting in politics to subvert the process and divert precious taxpayer resources in pursuit of a political witch hunt against me for no other reason other than that I successfully won my reelection. This was an abuse of power of the executive staff of the former administration, misusing their authority to pursue purely politically motivated investigation of their political rival. That is not how justice in this country should function. In fact, they didn't even really cover their tracks here well. A supplemental investigation was initiated just 2 days after I won re-election. Here's the timeline of what happened. On November 5th, 2024, I was overwhelmingly reelected to this seat by the people of this circuit. The appointed administration then abandoned the primary mission of this office and instead chose to put politics over public safety, attempting to subvert the will of the voters. On November the 6th at 7 o'clock in the morning, Chief Assistant Ryan Williams sent an email to the staff of this office in which he specifically stated, "The leaders of this office have no plans to begin looking for work elsewhere." Now, during that time, there were a lot of questions in the media. Well, what does that mean? Are they not going? Are they not going to hand over power? Well, here's what I can now tell you that it meant. It meant that on the very next day, on November the 7th, just 2 days after my reelection, the executive team directed a supplemental investigation of which I was the target. On December 2nd, 2024, Ryan Williams presented the findings of that investigation to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, requesting that a grand jury be convened based on the results of his investigation. The appointed executive team intentionally conducted a criminal investigation under the pretense of an administrative investigation for the sole purpose of ensuring that the defamatory and false information used to convene a grand jury would become public in the event that there was no indictment. Staff members were pressured and intimidated into complying with the demands of the appointed administration under threat of political consequences. No employee should be subject to intimidation or coerced in an action that is politically or personally motivated. Not only did these tactics undermine morale and professionalism within the office, but it also set a precedent for the abuse of authority and negatively impacted our already fragile workforce. This entire effort was part of an attempt to again undermine the will of the voters of this circuit and keep me from taking office. They abused their power and misused the resources of this office. Again, the fact that this investigation ramped up immediately after I won re-election tells you everything you need to know about its true purpose. It's political, not in the pursuit of justice. The voters made their choice clear, but some clearly didn't like the outcome. Rather than accept the will of the people, they chose to waste taxpayer resources on a partisan witch hunt, hoping it would prevent me from taking office and silence this community's voice in deciding who should represent them. Despite their best efforts, they will not prevail. I will continue to focus on the matters that the voters of this circuit sent me back to this seat to focus on. I will focus on solutions to real problems instead of to problems that don't exist. And my actions today will ensure that the sole motivation behind any investigation in this circuit is in fact the pursuit of justice and not politics. These policies will also help safeguard taxpayer resources from being wasted on politically driven investigations that serve no purpose other than to erode public trust in our criminal justice system. I will continue to lead and focus on the business of the people. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to have a brief question and answer period. So if anyone has a question for the state attorney, now's your opportunity.
So to clarify, are you going to be releasing the documents from the internal investigation so that the public can review what was done and the timeline that you laid out?
So what I mentioned was that our office is filing a petition for declaratory judgment with the court so that the court can determine whether or not those documents can be released. I ran on a platform of transparency, and it is always my intention to be transparent with the public. However, there are laws that govern information that can and cannot be released. It is the position of this office that the information that has been laid out in this defamatory lawsuit are not only false, but also protected by grand jury secrecy laws. We will be filing a petition for declaratory judgment with the court to have the court intervene in that particular situation.
State Attorney, is your understanding that investigation by FDLE and Mr. Gladstone, is that over? Have you been fully cleared in that? Is that done?
So I want to be clear. I am not at liberty to comment at all on any grand jury investigations. I'm just not. And this is not Monique Worrell telling you that I don't want to talk about it. I'm telling you that in the state of Florida, grand jury proceedings are secret proceedings, and I cannot comment on them. But I can tell you that had I been indicted, then you probably would have found out about it.
And just a question about the complaint. You might be referring to the petition for the mandamus filed by William Eric Edwards. When did he leave the office? When did he stop? Or was that after? What's his timeline when he left the state attorney's office?
So it's really interesting. Eric Edwards was initially hired by Jeff Ashton as his chief investigator. He was kept on by State Attorney Aramis Ayala, and then at his request, he was kept on by me when I took office in 2021. He then facilitated the transition of my removal from office and stayed on and became a very vocal part of this sham investigation against me. Now, what's really important to know about him is that he was a member of my executive team. So he had full knowledge that the things that he placed in that action against me were false because he was there while all of the things that he discussed were happening.
So what point did he leave the office after you elected, or you just went back to when
before I took office for the second time.
between November and this hearing in January?
Yes.
Were there any other investigations undertaken by the prior administration that were politicized against anybody else?
I can't speak to that. I know about this one, and that's the one we're talking about right now.
I was wondering if you could speak to the way that the criminal cases against Carolyn McKenzie were treated, both by this office and by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Do you feel like the outcome of those cases was influenced by politics?
I can't speak to that today. Okay? I may speak to it at a certain time in the future, but today I can't speak to it. Okay?
Any reaction the last week? Obviously, Orange County's been under the spotlight of the state and the Attorney General. Obviously, what you went through, having been reviewed. Did you have any conversations last week with the mayor and the commissioner? Just what did you think of the whole situation unfolding under this threat of seeing a whole commission removed, just like you were?
So here's the thing that I think is really important for the media. We need to stop talking about the removal of duly elected officials as though this is some type of normal. I gave a press conference a few years ago after my removal where I talked about us losing democracy and how it's the equivalent of boiling a frog alive, right? If you stick a frog in hot water, he'll immediately jump out. But if you put him in room temperature water and then slowly turn it up, you could literally boil him alive. I fear that we are in a place where we have gotten accustomed to the unjust removal of duly elected officials as though it's normal. And I'm here to tell you it's not, and we shouldn't consider it normal. The voters, not other elected officials, are the ones who make decisions about who represents their communities, and we should not lose sight of that lest we lose sight of our democracy.
Tommy Ziegler's in court today.
He was this morning.
Arguing that evidence should overturn the past 20 or 30 years. Do you believe that this evidence is strong enough, or do you believe in the evidence that was presented back when he was first convicted?
So my previous statement on this is that I advocated for Mr. Ziegler to have his day in court. I believe that the death penalty is so serious that if there is advancement in evidentiary testing processes, that we should allow people who were convicted earlier to take advantage of the newest testing that's available to them if they choose to do so in order to prove their innocence. That was the extent of my advocacy on this issue. After a thorough review by my Conviction Integrity Unit, it is their position that the state cannot stand with Mr. Ziegler in what he believes that the testing of the evidence shows.
That is State Attorney Monique Worrell, who is the State Attorney for Orange and Osceola counties, speaking at a news conference live in Orlando now, where she talked about a lawsuit that has been filed accusing her of destroying records, of urging people in her office to destroy records when during her first time in office several years ago. She denies that, says she never directed anyone to destroy records. She said that is an investigation that was politically motivated, says she believes she's the target of an investigation that was launched just 2 days after her re-election. So that is the news from the state attorney. We'll have more coverage of that coming up at 4 o'clock on Fox 35 News Plus. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live. Here's a live look at iDrive on this Thursday afternoon.